The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Week 12, DraftKings picks, lineups, ownership. And we're going to try to get you going like we did last week, which turned out to be a pretty good. If you played the very first lineup we had last week, guys, I think you did pretty well. I ended up coming 11th, John, in the $10 with said lineup, with the one that we worked off of the optimal. I told Tambo before the show, I always play like in a 20-man contest with all my friends, and I won by 60 points, so that's always good.
Yeah, we did some good stuff last week. Looking forward to this week. I'm feeling presidential, so it should be a good week.
Tambo, is it just play Michael Wilson every week because he's going to score 40 DraftKings points?
That was actually nuts last week. I kept saying it on, just preview shows this week and talking through it. It was like you turned it on. It didn't feel like he was doing anything. All of a sudden he has 8 catches. Then you're like, wait, this is really racking up. And then it was something like 15 catches for 185 or somewhere in that realm. It's just wild to see that play out the way it did. It's not often you get a $3,800 value play that just goes off completely and crushes in that sense.
Yeah, it's funny too, because like I had a few lineups where I was like, well, maybe I'll pivot off of Michael Wilson, play like Luther Burden instead. And I did that. Those lineups didn't make any money.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the interesting thing, the most interesting was that was the clear game. We talked about it on the last show about how all the perfect storm set up for it. And then in the end, the answer was just to play all of them, like even get Dortch into it, get the CMC and Kittle run back. There was some lineups like that. I had a close call on FanDuel with one just like that, but didn't quite get there. Big week for Bijan last week. So I don't know, this week's a little bit different, but I think it's going to start with the similar spot just based on the prices not moving that much on the options there.
Yeah, what do you make of it, John? Because that's what ended up going with that lineup. Like we threw in McBride, Wilson, and Dortch with Brissett. I think it was a CMC comeback. I can't remember if Kittle was in that one or not. I don't think that he was. The biggest issue with that lineup was using, I think it was like Aaron Jones and Vikings D. We could have had like Browns D for cheaper and maybe one of the better running backs. Obviously, that's in hindsight. Like, oh yeah, of course, those two plays didn't work out. But had we have found like 2 good spots for that running back and defense, it would have been like a tournament-winning lineup.
Yeah, I mean, we still did well. I think it goes to show that pricing matters. Like those guys were all underpriced because of the Marvin Harrison situation. And I think they're all priced up, a little bit more based off of last week's game this week. But I still think some of them are underpriced. So it's a good place to go right back to.
Yeah, it was because Bijan was in that lineup too. So it was Bijan as one of the running backs, McCaffrey and the flex. It was Chase Brown, DK Metcalf, and Vikings D. And Chase Brown was fine. He scored like 19 DraftKings points, but looking at it, Vikings D and Metcalf were the big 2 letdowns last week. So, if we just found Gainwell, we would have been fine.
Gainwell and Tucker was the optimal last week. If you had Sean Tucker and Kenneth Gainwell, you were doing really good.
How many lineups featured both of those guys? I can't imagine it was many.
None. And I went on an absolute tangent about the Sean Tucker thing because for some reason people continue to tilt players that literally nobody has, doesn't leverage really anything. It wasn't like everyone was on Egbuka or on the running backs there or anything like that. So it's like sometimes people just worry about something that doesn't matter at all. I do the review show every Monday. Nowhere even close to the top 20 was there a Sean Tucker lineup in the Millie Maker. It didn't matter.
John, I think that's important to realize. I know Tambo brings it up a lot. I'm sure you preach the same thing, is that, I'm the biggest, person who tries to do this, that, let's get these like 3 sneaky plays in. But in reality, you don't need the 3 sneaky plays. If you can find the 1 sneaky play that goes off, that's great. No one's going to have like the 3 random dudes together. It's just not happening.
Yeah, actually, it's one of the most important things I think for DFS, because we're even talking about like the largest field contests. You still have 9 spots, and there's so many different players available at each of the 9 spots that there's so many more combinations possible of players than you imagine. You don't have to get that off the board at every slot in your DFS lineup to take to get a unique lineup and take down a tournament, even if it has hundreds of thousands of people in it.
Looking at this week's injuries and where the values might open up, I guess the discussion really comes around to, I guess Sean Tucker would be one of those guys because Bucky Irving is not even on the main slate. Don't worry about him. Josh Jacobs, the knee contusion. Emmanuel Wilson is popping out in projections very big at $5,300. He's clearly the top play of all of the cheap running backs right now, John. There is a chance Josh Jacobs plays. Like, how much are you? I know we were talking beforehand that the projection systems have Emmanuel Wilson in and projected out like he's the starter right now. Obviously, Josh Jacobs is sort of a longer shot to play. What happens if Jacobs plays? Does that mean you use no Emmanuel Wilson? Does that mean you have to find a pivot off of him? What do you do in that circumstance? Because we're going to build as if Josh Jacobs is out.
Yeah. I think if Jacobs is in, I think you need to be like very hesitant about using a Green Bay running back, because Jacobs is then priced up and dinged up. And you don't know if he's going to necessarily make it through the game. Are they trying to reduce his workload because of because of injury? I would pay attention to coach speak in this case, right? If Jacobs is good to go, if there's some indication that like Emmanuel Wilson will still get a lot of work. I mean, he's well priced at 5,300, but there's reasonable pivots right there, right? Like Kenneth Walker is 5,400, David Montgomery is 5,300. So I think there's other places you can go if Jacobs is playing.
Yeah, there's also the out to Tambo, because I know a lot of people are going to be using Trevian Henderson. We take a look at the optimal. He'll be in there too. There's a chance that Ramondre Stevenson plays this week too. And that would it's not that I think that Ramondre comes back and has exactly the same role, but I do think that's within the range of outcomes too, that they're just like, oh yeah, no, Ramondre's our guy. Let's give him the ball.
Yeah, it's possible for sure. I think the other interesting thing is, I know we'll get to the optimal here, and I know it's got, a different Bengal in it, but I also think people will just flip to the other side for cheaper. You said Chase Brown did not come through for people last week, but it wasn't like it was bad. And he was super popular last week. I think he'll be popular again this week as well.
Yeah, the other guys that you can use, and I guess the discussion becomes, if we build with Wilson and then Jacobs is in, what do we do? Do we rebuild the lineup, or do we just do like a 1v1 pivot at that position? John, you mentioned Walker and Montgomery, $200 and $100 more than Emmanuel Wilson at 50. Actually, David Montgomery is exactly the same price. You could do a 1v1 pivot. Very nice matchup against the Giants. Ramondre is right there. It looks like Isaiah Pacheco is going to return this week. He's at $5,000. Both the Tennessee guys, who I don't think anyone wants a piece of, are down there as well. I guess it won't work with the optimal because we're using Brissett, Tambo, but Bam Knight is $4,900. We don't know if Trey Benson's going to be back. We do know that DeMercado is out. He might just be in line for 20 touches in this game.
Yeah, I'm not super high on that, but I guess you could go there. But I would actually just answer the first part of your question. And like the Montgomery thing is probably a more popular move for people, but I think it's a huge leak in people's games that they build their lineups early and then don't rebuild. It can change the slate entirely on Sunday morning if you get different news. And look, the majority of people playing 150, etc., are already knowing this and doing it. But a lot of people that hand build or feel like they have that good lineup in, or like, I don't want to change too much, they just do a simple swap like that, and they could be leaving a ton on the table just because the whole slate could be different now the way it shakes out. So I always be looking to rebuild.
What would you do here, John? Obviously, for you guys, it's different. You're playing a bunch of lineups. I'm probably going to build the 10 that we build on this show, and then I'll go back and readjust them or make the 1v1 swap, depending on what time that I remember to actually adjust my DraftKings lineups. I don't think that I'm alone on that, because a lot of people just kind of forget, like, oh, crap, last second, here we go. What do I do?
Yeah. Basketball DFS is a great way to practice for this scenario, because the answer is always totally rebuild. Basketball is a little bit more extreme, where you get like a 3K starter suddenly, and right, well, I didn't have the guy that was out or whatever. I'm not going to readjust my lineup. So like, no, you need to readjust. Now, when you're going from like a cheap player that seemed like he was going to have a lot of opportunity to now the starter is back, so he's maybe not going to have as much opportunity. It's not as dramatic of a change. I still think you need to consider rebuilding rather than like going to the direct price equivalent, unless you really like the direct price equivalent. Like I think David Montgomery is the guy that's like jumping off the page at the same exact price of Emmanuel Wilson. But like, I'm not that high on Montgomery, but who knows? But Montgomery could be overowned if like people are building with Wilson and suddenly Jacobs is in Sunday morning. I like the idea of maybe getting different, like shake up a couple spots in the lineup and see if that gets you like one of the running backs you're really high on, instead of just the guy that happens to be the same price.
Well, let's go through this and take a look at the optimal. Scheduling note, no shows the next 2 weeks on Friday live is the last one until the beginning of December, because Thanksgiving next week. I'm away the week after. Maybe John and Tambo might bring on a special guest and do the show by themselves without me. Probably the most insightful show that you'll ever get. So stay tuned to Mayo Media Network. I will let you know that. If you're subbed, you can comment in the chat as well. Smash the like while you are here. Let's bring up the optimal. Take a look at it. You can get all these tools at 4for4.com/Mayo. Use code Mayo50. Get 50% off. Jacoby Brissett, once again, the optimal quarterback at $5,300. He is paired with Michael Wilson and Trey McBride in this lineup, filling out a wide receiver and tight end slot. The flex goes to Travis Etienne, who is on the other side of the ball in that game. Injury around him, injuries around Tootin as well. So that's another situation that we need to monitor. The running backs are Trevion Henderson and Emmanuel Wilson at 67 and 53. Right now, T. Higgins and Devonta Smith round out the wide receivers, and then Saints defense, Tambo, creates the optimal. Where do you think that we start to pick this one together? Because I don't like Devonta Smith.
You can take him out. I actually do. I like him in this spot. I think we just saw even some of the Raiders before Geno's throwing INTs and things like that. He could move the ball a little bit. It was with Trey Tucker, which some might think here would be with AJ Brown, but I'm still fine with Devonta Smith. I think the bigger thing comes down to, we see that it looks built so solid like last week. So save this one in, Pat, in case it becomes a reality again. You've got the secondary stack of Henderson, Higgins. You've got the value in Wilson. But I think the biggest thing is if you wanted to sort of move it around a little bit, you could leave some of the Arizona stuff with the overstack and then start making a decision on those running backs. And if Devonta comes out with that, that's fine too. Pull him also and use that money in a different way.
So you would want to pull both running backs or just one running back?
It's up to, I'm just saying, if you want to move it, you can easily just keep ETN Jr. in there for the game piece that makes sense. And then I think it's really a decision for what you think on the Jacobs scenario as we're building on this show today, being that it's Friday and we won't have the news. Do you want to leave Wilson for the time being? Because he's obviously one of the best plays on the slate if there is no Jacobs on paper. But so that's where I'm saying you could move off of that and change it up, leave him in, take out Henderson and Smith, for example, the defense, and kind of have more pieces to move around.
Where would you like to start with this, John, picking it together?
So, like, in terms of like which players would I kick out?
Yeah.
I will give a word of caution on T. Higgins that Christian Gonzalez is a pretty good cornerback. So we tend to think that with Jamar Chase is suspended that we should go right to T. Higgins, but it's actually not that great of a matchup. And it might be a good game if you're playing Trevion Henderson. Like I'm not going to be totally off T. Higgins this week, but like that's maybe if I'm not using a quarterback in the New England Cincinnati game, maybe that's someplace I would jettison. Similar like to Devonta Smith, I would say that the Dallas defense is improving. The Philadelphia offense hasn't been putting up a ton of points the last couple of weeks, and they've still been winning games. So that might be a strategy they look to continue. So there's a few different places we could get a little bit different. Trevion Henderson's also I like him when he's facing the Cincinnati defense. So there's a strong argument for playing him. But I'll also say he has gone up in price, like maybe a little bit more than you would realize, right? Like 3 weeks ago he was $4,900. Now it's an $1,800 difference. So that's a place we can consider as well.
We also have to think that Joe Burrow might be back for this game as well. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing based on whatever his health is right now, because he's a month ahead of schedule on an injury that many thought would keep him out for the entire year.
Yeah. So that's another argument in favor of T. Higgins. But if I'm playing like a T. Higgins lineup, I want to be playing Joe Burrow if Burrow's in.
I see. Tambo, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because it feels like they've rushed him back knowing that the season is on the line. I don't know if he's a better option like this week in particular than Joe Flacco would be. I know Flacco was dealing with the shoulder injury, so maybe that's why he's coming back. But It seems like he's probably still hurt.
I think so. I prefer, but typically, I actually kind of prefer Flacco to be in there right now, the way it's been throughout, just continuously throws to his best guys. Just throw to Jamar Chase, throw to Higgins, one or the other, or both. But I kind of have a feeling we're going to see Burrow on Thanksgiving. Save him for the big Lamar versus Joe Burrow AFC North battle to round out the day. That game sort of big and important for the Ravens. Every game's important right now. So I think that's kind of the setup we'll see. I don't know if they do rush him back for this week. It just is constant practice updates because of all the points you said and how soon it is and et cetera, et cetera.
To John's point a little bit earlier about T. Higgins, he's now assuming the attention of the defense as the wide receiver one. Is this just a perfect spot instead of using T. Higgins at $7,100 to use Yoshivas at $4,100?
I'd be fine with it. It's obviously going to be good leverage. I think a lot more people land on Higgins with Chase being out, but at the end of the day, again, I see the optimal. I see what you had there. I still have it that Chase Brown is going to be wildly owned compared to some of the other running backs in that range.
So does that mean you would want to, like, if we just manipulate it like this a little bit, you get Henderson still as your running back, you have the bring back of Yoshivas instead, John. That gives us $8,600 to play with, where at receiver you can't get quite up enough to JSN, who's in a very good spot. St. Brown is against the Giants in this spot. You could afford him and then upgrade somewhere else if you wanted to, or you could just take out Emmanuel Wilson, figure out a higher end running back for this spot, and then just downgrade a wide receiver.
Yeah, I think one of the guys that I'd prioritize getting is Jahmyr Gibbs. So he's 8,300. Like looking at that 8,600, I know it doesn't work positionally. Yeah, I'd get Gibbs into the lineup and then see what I could get at wide receiver.
Well, after watching the game last week, I really obviously Wan'Dale Robinson is going to be an interesting factor on the other side of the ball. It looks like Jackson Dart is going to be playing for the Giants in this game too, but as big underdogs, Isaiah Hodgins was used pretty extensively in that game. He's only $3,300. He is their down deep field threat with Slayton out. This is a bad secondary playing catch up mode. This could be a great spot for him.
Yeah. Go ahead. I was going to comment just because I actually was on him on Sunday last week. I got a little insight from behind the scenes that I didn't even pay attention to. Sometimes you get those tidbits. You love to see them. Kafka, who was the interim coach, was the OC in Buffalo when Hodgins was there. So when they were bringing him in and getting him into the mix right away, he ended up having a few catches, I think it was 50 something yards. Like it was okay, but could have been a little bit more. What was it? 5 for 57. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I like that, Pat. I think that's an interesting spot. And I love John's call of figuring out what you're doing with Detroit here, because we've seen this spot all too many times, a 30-point implied team total at home, bounce back spot. Everything lines up for them as well. And I think it's not like Goff is going to be under-owned, but I think that getting to Gibbs here makes a ton of sense. And if you want to put a guy like Hodgins across from him, got no problem there. And then you could even move off Yoshi Voss and some of that stuff and boost up elsewhere.
We could boost up elsewhere in a bunch of different places now. We can afford a better defense. We could just insert Devonta Smith, John, back into this lineup as well, because he is $5,600. The other receivers in that range that we could go to, Wan'Dale Robinson is right there. We could use him instead of Hodgins. Jordan Addison is in this spot. DK Metcalf, who continues to underwhelm. We could use Parker Washington, because we still don't know the status of Brian Thomas Jr. He's leaning towards playing, I guess. Alec Pierce is just $5,000. And if you just used Alec Pierce every single week, I feel like he's paid off his salary far more often than not.
Yeah, I think there's some good options there. It was funny that I just like poo-pooed Devontae Smith, and now we've got the exact right amount of money for him. And I know, because he was in the cash lineup, right? Like he's going to be the highest projected player at that price point. I'll say we just added Jahmyr Gibbs, and that Wan'Dale Robinson is there maybe in the same game as a little bit of a mini stack. So that's not the word. And Wan'Dale Robinson always projects a little bit better than he performs, I think, because he tends to be more of a receptions guy than a long down the field guy. But speaking of long down the field guys, Alec Pierce, usually one of the leaders in yards per reception. So there's some good options. If we're just gonna making one pivot, I would probably do Wan'Dale Robinson to get the Gibbs run back, but I don't mind Isaiah Hodgins either. He's got a long history with the general manager, so then he's way too cheap at 3,300. I think he's going to be one of the best value plays on the slate.
And he doesn't seem to be popping up in the optimal as much as others. So if we just go like Gibbs with Hodgins on the other side, we take out Yoshivas, we now have $6,400, Tambo, to mess around with if we want to.
Yeah, I'm definitely plugging in my boy Zay Flowers. I already had it on the screen. I was about to tell you this version afterwards, but that's where I'd be going with this lineup. So, I'm very interested in that build.
What is it?
It's like 2 points off the original optimal.
It is shocking to me to see 13.4 fantasy points per game for Zay Flowers, because it feels like he does nothing every week.
It's been very look at it. It's very consistent. It's just very mediocre. That's been the challenge.
Yeah, one touchdown. Week 1, his only touchdown.
He had a huge week 1.
Yeah.
Brings up his average.
But it is very consistent every single week. Like, he's a PPR dynamo. Obviously, we're playing PPR on DraftKings. I don't hate that. I mean, Baltimore is probably the other team besides Seattle that we haven't touched. There's too many teams with giant team totals this week that we're just simply not going to be able to get to them all, are we?
Right. I had the stat for you on Zay Flowers if you wanted it for this week. I found it. Shout out to Jordan Vanek, DFS, with some fantasy points data. He said the Jets against play action, 8.1 yards per attempt, 13-0 pass TD versus interception ratio. Zay Flowers on play action plays with Lamar Jackson, 33% target share, 35% air yard share, 6.58 yards per route run, and almost a 40% first read on that scheme. So yeah, I think it's going to be a better week for Zay Flowers than we've seen in the past. I like when the tidbits have stats like that with them.
I see. I like that too. So let's throw Zay Flowers in. Let's enter this one as the pivot off the optimal. And then I'm going to rebook it back in right now. Is there any spot that we want to go in this Arizona-Jacksonville game, John, that we don't currently have? Or do we have the right blueprint of what we wanted? Because we could mix Dortch back in again if we wanted to. We could get another Jag in here. We could overstack. How would you like to play this one out?
I don't mind the idea if we're pivoting off this lineup, we could do a Trevor Lawrence lineup. The Jaguars are the team that's actually favored in this game. I know Lawrence isn't the most popular quarterback, but that's actually good for us, right? Like, some ownership discounts. The Cardinals have been playing pass happy since Jacoby Brissett moved into the starting lineup. And this gives us an opportunity to get a Jacksonville wide receiver. Now, we don't know if Brian Thomas is back, but I don't necessarily mind the idea of like building through Jacoby Myers at 4,700. He's a talented wide receiver that we kind of expect to get more involved in the Jaguars offense as the season goes on.
I actually like keeping Michael Wilson and Trey McBride in this lineup, knowing that is the pass funnel, Tambo. Maybe it changes a little bit this week, but with Marv out again, you could play Dortch instead of Wilson. But I think if you're not playing Wilson and McBride, even without Brissett in the spot, because we just saw that they can get there without him.
Yep, I agree. And I think this would be a spot too, if you wanted to. I don't know what it gets us, but I'd be fine going back to Wilson at running back also, just because you're already flipped the build to a completely different side with Myers and Lawrence and all that. If we do get to use Wilson, this would be a fine lineup to use him in, regardless of what his ownership gets to.
How sold are you on Emmanuel Wilson? Because obviously they're big favorites in this game. They're 6.5-point favorites. If they get down in this game, I think we see a lot more Chris Brooks than people are anticipating.
Yeah, big if on that one. I'm definitely high on him. I'll just figure it out in the rest of my lineup. But if there is no Jacobs here, you don't get, again, it's the way the pricing gets as the season goes on too. It just tightens up. So, having a guy at 5,300, big home favorites, like, everything there, I think there's definitely an opportunity. So I'm going to be interested for sure. I'm just waiting on the news.
So let's keep Gibbs and Hodgins in this for the moment, John. Who is the other Jag that you would want to play here? Is it Parker Washington? And assuming there's no Brian Thomas?
I think you could go Parker Washington. I think we want to figure out the running back spot. I think you can play Lawrence and Travis Etienne together. But there's a Tootin question mark. I think both Tootin and Etienne are questionable with injuries. We got to see which one practices. If only one practices, and you're getting like one of the Jaguars running backs, that's going to be the value, maybe potentially, that we wanted opening up with Tootin. Particularly if it's Tootin. But yeah, with what we know right now, let's put in Parker Washington. We've got a little bit of a double stack there.
So I put in Seahawks defense. We don't need to do that. Is there a running back that you guys would like to throw in here? Because we can go Gibbs and Wilson as our running back. We don't have to play a bring back Tambo in the Giants game. I think getting a piece of the Seahawks, the defense if you're not going to play JSN, the defense makes absolutely the most sense in this game.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I was just trying to see what else is there.
I mean, you could downgrade the defense and play Chase Brown if you wanted to, just as a one-off.
I think it depends more what you want on the other side. Like, who else do you have going in there in that sort of 6K range, and then just let the defense dictate itself? Because there is options below the Seahawks still that you can get to.
The best flex play, I'm just trying to see who rates out the best. Let me jump over to the 4for4 optimizer and just search by all people and ceiling points. We got.
I would probably play Chase Brown in the Packers D.
Chase Brown at Packers D with Emmanuel Wilson.
Yeah, just because we don't have T. Higgins in this lineup anymore. And again, I actually think Chase Brown's going to be very high owned. We'll see. But I'm just saying, for current standpoint, I think that. But at least you still have a piece of that game. And then maybe the Packers D going in. It's not like McCarthy's been able to make throws and things like that. So I think this would kind of be the way I would set it up and just live by it. You're already pretty different with the Lawrence, Washington, Myers mixed in with the Wilson, McBride. So I'm good with that.
What do you make of it here, John? Because one thing that you could do in this lineup, should Brian Thomas be in, because we've used Chase Brown, we'll know that. I mean, we should know that by Sunday morning. Maybe we don't because that's at one of the later games. But you could just go 1v1 switch Chase Brown and Brian Thomas, and then you could turn Parker Washington into a Alec Pierce if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think that works. I think it's good to be adaptable depending on what the injury situation is. I'm pretty torn on Chase Brown this week because I think he's going to get all the opportunities, but the New England defense is not necessarily a defense we want to play running backs against. But that might not matter if he gets 8 receptions. So I'm, kind of having that push and pull with Chase Brown. I think he's going to be a fine play, but there's definitely some reasons for caution there.
Yeah. Are there any games just in general you guys are avoiding this week? Like, do you want to play any player in the Cleveland and Vegas game?
Maybe what's the guy we were looking at the other day? Cedric Tillman.
Oh, I my guy. Sounds good to me.
Again, I'm definitely. It's not about like the class of talent at all, but the price is not really fully adjusted yet for him coming back, and then also. We just watched wide receiver 2s just absolutely destroyed the Raiders, and it could be a possibility that it's him this week. I mean, Judy's there too for just a little bit more, but I was just trying to see if I had that one. But yeah, I had something on Tillman. I kind of like Tillman in this spot as well.
This is a 2v2 that I just put in. I want to get your take on it. Do you like the combination of Chase Brown and Michael Wilson, or Dortch and Trevian Henderson? It's exactly the same price.
I like the original, but I think that's great. I love when there's 2v2s like that, so I think that's perfectly fine as well.
I like the first side better as well, John. Do you think that the other side has more merit?
I like the first one. I'm still not that big of a Greg Dortch believer, so I'd probably rather go with the perimeter wide receiver in Wilson.
Well, I think I'm with you. I liked Dortch last week because we were getting him at $3,400. He was the reason I was able to squeeze Bijan into that big lineup because we were able to have so many savings. I think there are better receivers than Dortch, although this is the game stack that we'd be looking at for a cheaper price this week, who probably have a bigger upside than he does. Mm-hmm. All right.
I'd rather spend up $1,000 more on Michael Wilson than like $900 more on Greg Dortch, just from their last week prices. Like Dortch is in the same price range now as like Jacoby Myers. And he's only $500 cheaper than Michael Wilson.
All right. Well, that is the Arizona and Jacksonville game. You guys think of some games that we can do and come back from the break and build with, because we're going to break. Buy some stuff, okay? Somewhat surprisingly, I actually take tailgating very seriously. Grill fired up, cooler packed, and yeah, I'm the guy everyone counts on for the food. Whether that's my home barbecues, birthdays, tailgating, doesn't matter what it is, Pat Mayo is always relied upon for bringing the food. That's why I go with Omaha Steaks, the official sponsor of tailgating. They've been America's original butcher for over a century, and everything they send is top-notch, perfectly aged steaks, juicy burgers, those thick, deli-style franks, all delivered directly to your door. I tossed the ribeyes on the grill last weekend. Crazy tender, amazing flavor, and you can taste the quality. There's no off-season for flavor here. Make your next game day delicious with Omaha Steaks. Just head to omahasteaks.com and use promo code MAYO at checkout for $35 off your order. That's omahasteaks.com. Promo code MAYO. Terms apply. See site for details. This episode is brought to you by Manscaped. Holidays, they're here, which means it's officially gift-giving season. Nothing says I appreciate you quite like the gift of smoothness of your balls. Whether you're shopping for your partner, your brother, or honestly, yourself, the Manscaped Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the ultimate upgrade. This thing is a full grooming arsenal. You get the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra Trimmer. Super precise, very reliable, and great for keeping everything neat before those holiday parties or date nights or random people that you haven't seen in 15 years that you meet at a bar when you go home at Christmas time. You want to be trimmed, all right? Plus, the Weed Whacker 3.0 for nose, ear, and eyebrow cleanup so you're not showing up with rogue hairs trying to ruin your family photos is a must. Give the gift of smooth this holiday season with the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. Get 15% off your entire order with code PATMAYO at manscaped.com. That's 15% off with code PATMAYO at manscaped.com. Stay on top of your grooming game and be ready for anything the season throws your way. Now that I'm old, I've had to come to the fact that I just don't bounce back the way that I used to. I don't wake up in the morning feeling normal. And now that football season has started, that is absolutely unacceptable. I got work to do in the morning, and I got kids that are waking up. It's no good. But that isn't a problem anymore because I found Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol. The Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic, invented by PhD scientists to tackle the rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for the rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol the first drink of your night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel the best tomorrow. Go to zbiotics.com/PatMayo to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use PatMayo at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund you your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/PatMayo and use the code PatMayo at checkout for 15% off. Reminder to smash the like to this episode and sub to Mayo Media Network. Hell, turn on the notifications. Download the podcast. Help us out bigly on that front. But if you do want to ask a question, you need to be a sub. I've thrown the goof, Jared Goff, into a lineup. I want to do some Detroit, Minnesota. You mentioned it, 30-point team total, Tambo. Who do you put with Goff besides St. Brown, knowing that Laporta is now basically done for the season? Well, at least 3 more weeks, if nothing else.
I'm closing it right up at wide receiver. Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Isaiah Hodgins, done.
Ooh, John, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I love it. We got the Isaiah Hodgins, so we're gonna have some savings in this lineup. And I agree. You go right to the wide receivers.
Is there a case to put Gibbs with Goff? Like, is that a way to use Gibbs a bit more as a unique presence in a lineup rather than just putting him as a one-off like we did in the other lineup? Or is that too expensive?
It might be too expensive. I think if you can afford it, and we do have a $3,300 wide receiver in there already. But yeah, Gibbs absolutely gets some receiving work. I mean, there's so many times I'm watching a game and some Gibbs lineups are chasing me and I just see like reception after reception. It feels like, and it's like so frustrating. Like it's like those little 10-yard runs, right? That don't actually go anywhere on the field. But yeah, I mean, we're talking about a running back that had over 100 receiving yards last week. So there's certainly an argument for using him with Goff. I don't know if you can use him with Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's my question mark. Is it too expensive with St. Brown? But the Lions could put up a ton of points here, so it's worth putting him in and then seeing where we go from there.
So Tambo, the best GPP values on the slate, all pretty expensive guys: McBride, Higgins, Gibbs, Emmanuel Wilson, Trevion Henderson, Chase Brown, ETN, Bijan Robinson against the Saints. You have Michael Wilson at $4,800. Derrick Henry's popping up there as well, of just guys that we haven't used in these lineups, like points per dollar wise. To me, it's just McBride. Like McBride at $6,800 is too cheap.
Yeah, I agree. That's always going to be the first decision that you make. I think there's going to be a case to be made that you could also just play McBride and Wilson even without their quarterback because of the combination of just catching these short passes and doing whatever they do with them. And if you have a lineup like this, that'd be a way to separate it. And then you'd only have to pick 2 running backs, and close it out because you'd be able to put both of them in there and just call it a combo pack for the price point.
Do you mind doing something like that, Joan?
No, I mean, I think it's what I've got when I was already building out this lineup. Trey McBride is ridiculously underpriced at $6,800. He should be far more expensive if he's a wide receiver. We wouldn't even be thinking about it. I think it increases the viability of 2 tight end lineups. If you're using a quarterback and you want to pair him with your tight end, you should still strongly consider getting Trey McBride into that lineup.
So looking at the other options on this slate at tight end, that you could do, like Kelsey rates out second best. He's 5,000. Bowers against Cleveland is 6,000. Like of the cheap option, like Loveland pops up, but not great by any stretch. Mark Andrews pops up here. Mason Taylor, I actually think might be the most interesting, only, John, because Tyrod is back under center. That the one time that we did see Tyrod against Tampa, it's like, oh yeah, here comes Tyrod and Mason Taylor. That's who he's throwing to.
Yeah, 3,400. I think there's going to be opportunities. It's basically just a flow chart for me, right? Like, do I have the money for Trey McBride? If I do, I want to play Trey McBride. If If I don't, then like who is the tight end that's paired with my quarterback, right? Because that guy's going to be cheaper than Trey McBride. But I think Trey McBride is the clear priority at $6,800, not just the clear priority at tight end at $6,800.
Yeah, you kind of pointed it out, Tambo. Is he still, even with Emmanuel Wilson, assuming he gets all of the touches, is McBride the best value on the slate?
It's exactly what John said. He's still super underpriced. So at 6,800, you're just gonna have to find a way to work around him. There is other ways. We've talked about it. You can do double tight end, like you were just hinting at. You can do just if you're already super unique in your stack, or a different way of going about it. Like there's builds here. Even just me messing around with this one for 2 seconds to what you just said, you can have like Emmanuel Wilson with Saquon Barkley, Mason Taylor, and the Seahawks defense. And then if you didn't want to double tight end punt it, you could just get the defense back down to like the Saints like you had before and see what that gets you. But I'm just using just random examples. You could change Saquon to your Henderson option that you had there and take advantage of that. And that gives us even more money. If you go back to your Henderson, Wilson, Saints, you end up back on $5,700. So
the other thing that we could do is take Michael Wilson out of this lineup, John, and play Brock Wright. 7 targets last week, didn't really work out against the Eagles, but only $3K with his quarterback seems to make some sense in this lineup. If maybe.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. Like I said, like you either are playing Trey McBride or the tight end associated with your quarterback, or both, right? Like you're probably not going to find a better 3K player for this lineup, considering you're playing Jared Goff than Brock Wright. He doesn't need to do much to pay off that $3,000 price tag. Got 7 targets last week, caught 2 passes. If one of those ends up in the end zone, right? Like that's all we need at 3K.
What do you want to do with defense here? Because let's say we go to the Saints, Tambo, at $2,500, that gives us $7,300 per running back. Do we need that much? I guess is the question.
So this is another spot where you and I always talk about this, and why this is actually a great example of why I always try and get you to save defense for last.
Yeah.
And here's just a quick example. We have so much money right now that like I just plugged in, I wanted to see what it would look like if I put in Bijan and Chase Brown. Okay. So I put in Bijan and Chase Brown, 2 guys I'm looking at that I think are in good spots that I've talked about a little bit already. It left me 2,500, but I was like, oh shit, that sucks, right? Because we don't want to play the Saints against Bijan, right? But the Vikings are the same price. Do I like the Vikings? No. But guess who I'm not playing in the lineup? Emmanuel Wilson. So whether Josh Jacobs come back, whatever happens now, I at least have a validated point where this lineup can still make some sense either way. And it actually projects equal to the optimal just based on the projections I've got here. So just noting it, I think that's important to look at. So yeah, I like that example, but you can change it a bunch of different ways.
So we could go Brown, Bijan, Vikings D. I like the idea, John, of playing Vikings D against 0 of the Packers that we have in this lineup. Just like, hey, that's a fade game. Maybe it goes the other way. Maybe the Vikings somehow end up winning this game. It is outdoors. It's going to be cold. Listen, maybe there's sacks and picks abound. Who knows? And the Vikings, it's not like they don't generate pressure. They generate a ton of pressure. It's just whether or not that Love can beat that defense. That actually makes a ton of sense to me to play a lineup like that. So I'm going to submit that one. But if you had to rearrange the running backs, would it be Bijan that you wanted to go to? Could we find a better way to allocate this money at running back and defense? Like, could you play, is this a spot for Seahawks defense, Trevian Henderson, and someone else? Like, what do you make of these like mid-range running backs this week? Because getting to Taylor is just going to be basically impossible, isn't it? Especially in this lineup.
Yeah, I think Jonathan Taylor has to do a ton to pay off that price tag. I was going to say instead of Bijan, I was going to go right to Jahmyr Gibbs, and then we could play the Saints Saints defense, the little 2v2. Because we were talking about the idea, can we play Jahmyr Gibbs with a Jared Goff lineup? But we maybe want to pivot a little bit more than that. If we want to pivot down to the mid-range for a running back, one guy that I like, I think he's being under talked about, is Kenneth Walker at 5,400. I think if Emmanuel Wilson is playing at 5,300, I think that Kenneth Walker is going to get totally overlooked. He's facing the Titans. Seattle likes to run the ball, and Walker has been seeing increasing share versus Zach Charbonnet.
He's been seeing the increasing share, but he's not seeing the increasing share inside the 5-yard line, which would worry me. Although I suppose you could spin it that this is a bad run defense. He's an explosive quarterback that if he's going to score, he's going to score from like the 40-yard line anyway.
Yeah, I mean that's possible. Things can change as well. And at 5,400, I think that it's starting to be priced in a little bit that he's not getting the goal line work. I mean, that most players have gone up in value. Kenneth Walker has gone down since his week 1 price. He's been as expensive as $6,500 this season. He's now 5,400, and he's coming off a 20-point DraftKings point game.
So we can go Kenneth Walker. What does that do to us then? What do we end up having in this lineup? We have $7,800. You can play Josh Jacobs if he plays. You also have Derrick Henry, Tambo, your boy, against the Jets. That's not a bad spot.
Yeah, I like that spot too. I actually prefer. Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it there. I was just trying to look at a couple different versions, and that one actually looks pretty good. And it's unique in that you got the defense paired up with the other, and then you still end up getting. I think that fits Jameson Williams. Yeah, it's the same as what you have there. That's why I was just comparing one other version. But yeah, that still looks pretty good on paper, Pat. It's about a point less than the original optimal.
The other thing, what is your take, Tambo, on Jonathan Taylor this week? Because I don't think anyone's going to, it's not that no one is going to use him. I can just see very few people owning him because of that price tag. And is there a way that we could figure out this lineup to make him work?
Yeah, there's two camps on it for sure. Like if you got we already have a Hodgins and a Wright in there. We know that you could take a Monra out and be able to just still have a Goff, Jameson Williams, Brock Wright stack. Like it could just get there that way, sure. And you could get Gibbs in instead. But I think it's what people don't look at as much as like people are like, if nobody's going to play Jonathan Taylor, let me just jam him in because he can just crush it. Yeah, he can, but it's the price matters and what it does to the rest of your lineup. A lot of people figure that stuff out. Like he's going to have a huge game. He could have 100 yards and a touchdown. You could be just all could be stuff, but you could be much better off with that same game parlay than you are with DFS lineups that have that in it.
I tried to go Taylor, Colts, Bam, Knight, but it's $100 short.
You can't even fit that. That's my point. Like people are, oh, you don't want the guy that's like a lock for 100 yards and a touchdown? I might not actually, because he costs $10,000 of the 50 I have to spend. I have to build a lineup. I'm not picking a play. So a same game parlay of 100 plus yards and an anytime touchdown probably still doesn't even pay great, but it would pay decent enough. And that might be where you want to put your money on that. If you don't want to play him on the slate, you could do it that way as well.
So we could try to figure out some sort of same game parlay, I suppose, John, featuring Jonathan Taylor. There is one bet that I wanted to throw out. Obviously, I will discuss more of this on the Saturday show when I update the ownerships, the full injury report. That'll be out on Saturday afternoon. As it always is, it'll be on 4for4.com and in my free newsletter sent directly to you as well, where I have the actual just like bones cheat sheet of, hey, here's the info that you need, projected ownerships. And I've been adding, I've been using ChatGPT to break down my show and just articleize my takes on some of the players below that. So we can try to figure that out as well. That's all part of the free newsletter. If anyone wants to go subscribe to that right now, down in the description, completely free. You can read it up on 4for4.com as well. But I bet the Seahawks last night minus 10.5 first quarter spread at 9-1, John.
But yeah, that doesn't sound bad at all. Facing the Titans, right?
Yeah,
they should romp early and often.
It was kind of my idea that like if they just played a bunch of games, Tambo, that have gone that way already this year, where they just smoke people in the first half.
Yeah, and we'll get 9-0 now because of that. And it's like we all lose. It's like, no, I think anything like that is fine. And when you can find angles of attack like that, I'm all for it. And I know you've been doing a good job of finding some of those lately. I saw some hockey winners that you've been posting. I've seen a bunch of different ones. I've never been able to catch on to too many of them. But just going back to my Jonathan Taylor thing for the sake of the bit, it's plus 190 for Jonathan Taylor to score an anytime touchdown and get 100 yards on the ground.
Yeah, that's much better. I would rather just bet that, I think.
If you really think it's like a thing, I think you could just hammer that and then not deteriorate all of your DFS lineups. But again, if he scores 40 or 50, you'd probably need him. So maybe you make your parlay a bit bigger where it's like to the spot of what would actually kill you, and you put the 2 touchdowns in there with the 100 plus yards.
What does that end up paying? Like 5-1?
I'm going down to it now. TD score.
That's crazy that 2 touchdowns and 100 yards would pay 5-1. That's probably what it is.
Plus 410.
Wow, not even. Wow. Well, that sucks. Yeah, 3 touchdowns then for Jonathan Taylor. But
Fine.
Even if he scores the 50 DraftKings points, John, what are the chances that you think that he would be in the winning lineup if that happened? Like, are there enough lineups that you would find the right combination? Because it feels like if that's going to be 1/5, 20% of your salary cap, finding the other guys who actually pair up with him to score points is going to be way too tough.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's about lineups, not players. This is actually one of the reasons I like playing UFC DFS is because you see these guys priced at like 9,800, 10K. I don't think that at 10K, but like 9,800, and the fighter goes out and gets like a first round, a 30-second win, puts up the highest score on the slate, and it's just absolutely not possible to build a winning lineup with him, even though he did the best he possibly could. And Jonathan Taylor is kind of in that spot this week. I mean, if he does put up another 52 DraftKings points, right? Like 240 yards, 3 touchdowns, then yeah, he has a chance of landing on the winning lineup. But the question is, like, what else did you put in that lineup that around Jonathan Taylor? And that's going to be the difficult part.
Well, let's go to that game then. Let's go to Chiefs and Colts because that has an over 50 implied total. It's Mahomes on the main slate, Tambo. You always hate that. So where do you start in that game? Is it Daniel Jones without Jonathan Taylor?
I was probably thinking like one of the defenses, but I had no plans to really stack this as of now. But I think back to the other previous point just quickly, and then I'll let you take it back over. But just of note on that as well, I do think it's in Arrowhead. The Chiefs D is pretty solid, as we know. So I also think there's that factor to it of like, what are the odds of him getting that 50-point game that's needed? And then like you couldn't even fit, just messing around and joking around, a lineup with Bam Knight, Hodgins, and whoever the hell else, Brock Wright. Like we can't get anything in there with that. So can you make a lineup? Yes. Is it going to be shitty? Probably. And at the end of the day, I think it just comes down to, you don't have to go anywhere in that spot. I think their team total is very similar to that of, I don't know, some of the other teams. It's more the Kansas City side if you wanted to look at it, but I don't stack with Mahomes. So I don't know what else you'd want to do there. But like Packers have a similar spot. Who else here?
I don't know. Are they in a similar spot? Because like the game total in that game is only 41 right now. That's really dropped off throughout the week. Like the Patriots Bengals, like just maybe even Drake May side is a better option.
I don't really look at it like that, actually. I look a lot more at team totals, and I think those tell a story. Like the week Caleb went off and nobody wanted to be there for it. It's like you had to, the Bears never have a 26-point team total, let alone on the road. So I care way more about the team total than the game. It all stems from the same thing. I'm just saying people don't look at it enough.
But to that, the Bears and the Packers probably have almost identical team totals this week, don't they?
They do, and almost identical to the Colts. That's why I was bringing them up as up. The Jags, who we were already on, the opposite side, just in a way better game in a dome. Like, that's what I'm saying. And not enough people are looking at it from that perspective. And I think that's the key.
John, I guess even in a 40-point game total, John, the Seahawks would have one of the higher implied totals this week too. So do you want to try to build out a Colts KC, John? We'll leave it to you to spearhead it because Tambo hates this game.
Yeah, I can spearhead it in Arrowhead. I would build it from the Patrick Mahomes side, but it would probably not have Jonathan Taylor. It's like this game. Yeah, I think this game has the highest total of the week, but does it have the highest total for the DFS prices? Not really. And if you are trying to stack up this game and Jonathan Taylor does have, 95 yards and 2 touchdowns, you're basically sunk because, the offense from, a good portion of the offense from this game came from a player that's 10,000 at the running back spot on a week where we might have running back value.
So Mahomes, Rice, Pierce, Kelsey?
I would say no, but I would also say that not no in general just because of the bit, but just saying like what you have there is what we did last year when we did the show, Pat. We'd build shells and say, okay, about 5,100 remaining. So all we know is if that's your lane, go with it because it clearly works. And I think I'd be more likely to have a Pierce one-off, a Pittman one-off, a Rashee Rice with downs or something in that way that I set it up is more likely where I would be to go. But the build you just set up makes a ton of sense on screen, but it's also the exact same fit as like every other build we've looked at in the grand scheme. 5,100 left. Once you plug in a few of the same running backs and defenses, we'll kind of be landing in the same zone. So then it just becomes, is that the game and the quarterback and the stack that you need? And the answer has been overwhelmingly no over the last 150 millimakers. So yeah, that's the answer.
So John, would you try to do this differently or do you kind of side with Tambo that we can just pick a better game than this one?
I will have some stacks of this game in my 150 lineup set. And they will look like this, and they will look then with the rest of the pieces we plug. It'll have Manuel Wilson, like Packers defense, Chase Brown, Trey McBride. Call it a day. Maybe throw Isaiah Hodgins in there.
Let's see. Well, let's just see what that looks like. Packers D, Manuel Wilson, Chase Brown leaves you $3,600 for Hodgins. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
That's the lineup. You could get up. I mean, I know you want to play Packers D with Emmanuel Wilson. You could get access to, because we have no Ravens, that Ravens against Jets could just be like the offsetter there. Yeah, screw it. I'll play that.
That's what it is. Like I said, if that's the version you need, that's the one that wins, and you're good to go. But it's basically the same thing. It's just you're choosing that game over the other ones.
All right, so that's the one that I wanted to throw to just because of the total. I guess Chicago is in play here, as we talked about. Seattle is in play. Baltimore is in play as one of these stackable teams. Tambo, where would you like to go?
I guess the one thing that we didn't talk too much about, and it'll probably be popular this week, but is like the Drake May spot. Again, the Patriots have almost a 30-point team total on the road. Any team going against Cincinnati, I'm definitely going to have interest in. And I kind of like that it's a little bit hard for people to figure out. And like if Booty's, Booty back and all these different factors, people don't like to always mess around with that. Drake May has been hard to stack. I've trademarked this one too, Pat, is it, Drake May Holmes, hashtag never May Holmes. It's tough to stack and get it right with Drake May, Josh Allen. And honestly, for some cases, Mahomes has got easier to stack, but they do still like to spread it out in Kansas City. So it's tough, but you kind of got to pick your spot. I would probably set it up like Diggs, Henry, Chase Brown, or Higgins, or all of them together. And you've got Yoshi Voss and Booty, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, so I ended up going with Booty in this lineup, John, solely because, as Tambo pointed out, Drake May very tough to stack with. The guy that has the most success, in my mind, based on the upside that you want to see, that if one of his receivers goes off, it's Booty who ends up going off because he just runs deep routes all day.
Yeah, you're hoping for a long touchdown there. I think my number one stacking partner for Drake May would actually be Hunter Henry because he's 3,900.
Is Hooper back? Do we know that? Because I think that plays a significant factor here.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's back. I think it's Hunter Henry.
He was a full participant, so Austin Hooper will be back. I can take a look at the snap counts, but maybe it's just my mind watching, but it feels like the games where Hooper is out is when Henry actually gets directly involved. And obviously,
the thing is, like, Henry never gets involved. I hate it. I always play him too. I'm 100% with John, but also so frustrated by it when you go pull it up and it's like 8, 9, 1, 7, 7, 6. Like, why does he never get there? It's just nuts. But he's 3,900. I think he's had one good game all season.
He has been over 10 DraftKings points twice. Actually, no, 3 times. Week 1, 3, and 14, and he scored more than 11.9, John, once all year. That was that week 3 game when he scored 29 DraftKings points.
People don't like my Henry call.
I have been advised to listen to you, so people are just like, Pat, stop talking John off real plays. I will play Hunter Henry in this lineup. I will trust you on this one, but I'm giving you my feedback of why I hate Hunter Henry. Can we just play Trey McBride in this lineup instead?
It's a salary cap game, right? Like he's 3,900. We can still put Trey McBride in there if it'll make people happy. We've already got Kayshon Boutte in there. Like we are basically just hoping for a touchdown from Hunter Henry at that price tag, and then it adds one more, touchdown to the notch of Drake May. Gives us another 10 points instead of 4 or 6.
Is this a spot if Ramondre Tambo is out to play Henderson in this lineup instead of Henry, then you go, or in Henderson instead of Boutte because we know how involved he is in the passing game?
It's fine. Yeah. Like you could definitely mix him in as well, but I'm worried. I'm waiting to see on that one. I'm more worried about that news coming in and then it does muddy it up a little bit. Obviously 2 great games for Henderson, but it's a bit tricky. I was thinking more about what are we doing with Detroit here? Like, can we figure that out? Because I think we should try and get Gibbs in there.
I was going to say we can get in Gibbs or we can get in Jamison Williams, who has had that uptick since Dan Campbell has started taking over play calling duties.
Yeah, the other thing is they said this week, actually, Dan Campbell said he wants to get Montgomery more involved now.
So Montgomery, not Gibbs. Easy game.
It could be. I mean, that's at least somewhat interesting. Now we got a ton of money still here. This is kind of cool. And I think I would still be putting McBride in, by the way, even with the Henry call. Like I said, I agree with John. It's frustrating that it's like the Zay Flowers of the tight end position is Hunter Henry. It's like, it's always good, but it's not great. And where's the big one at? And maybe it's this week, hopefully, but I like this.
Oh, we need a wide receiver. Damn. I was going to say, this works out perfectly. I can fit Derrick Henry in here. No problem.
You could get Rice in there, get a piece of that KC action. That's how we play Mahomes without playing Mahomes. Do it the smart way.
Yeah. The only other way to, how do you feel about JSN, John? Like, cause we can play a different defense and just put Rice and Seahawks could turn into JSN and Saints D if we wanted to.
Well, I do like me some JSN. He's having a near historic season. So even at 9K.
And we have no Cardinals or Jags here. We could play Steelers D, Cardinals D, Saints D, Vikings D, if that's a route we wanted to go to. Do we like Steelers D against Caleb, who is very good at avoiding sacks?
I'd do the Cardinals defense if we're not playing a piece of that Jacksonville, Arizona game.
What do you make of that, Tambo? You think that's a smart move?
Yeah, I was fine with it. I was going to note that we do have a piece of that game in Trey McBride, but we don't need to worry about that. Like, you can easily get there with the tight end, the defense. There's, it's fine, 100%. So I'm good with that build, and I definitely like JSN. I think a lot of people should like JSN. I think he had a horrible game last week and still put up 24 DraftKings points. So it's like this guy can definitely put up whatever number you need, 30 plus quite easily. So I think that's a good spot for JSN.
Just wondering where you guys land on Chiefs D this week. Daniel Jones, 3 picks 2 weeks ago, and he's put the ball on the ground 6 times in the last 2 weeks as well. It's only 3,100.
Yeah. I like that one, Jared. I think that's another key piece to just going back to what we always talk about. Like when we weren't on Emmanuel Wilson earlier and we just land on the Minnesota D, it's less about what people's feelings are around the play, but then you actually add some component to it, like you mentioned, of what Daniel Jones is capable or incapable of. And it kind of makes a ton of sense at 3,100 if you can find a way to finagle it, Pat.
Yeah, the problem is if we throw JSN into this, John, then we can't afford that. We kind of have to go with Cardinals D, Saints D, or one of those if the whole goal here is to have JSN in this lineup.
Yeah, I think would want to go with the JSN version. He's leading the league in receiving yards by 238 yards. It's like by 25% over the next closest receiver is George Pickens. I think people are not really realizing what JSN is doing on a weekly basis.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's throw him in. Then we get the best receiver and the best tight end in the lineup, and hopefully the game stack that we have chosen for this one in particular ends up working out. What are some of the other games that we can briefly hit on here before we get out? Do we want to do? I think Chicago Pittsburgh feels like 13-12 or 45-40 to me. Like these are the types of games that these two idiot teams play.
I'd maybe do Lamar Jackson lineup before I did like Caleb Williams. But I think there's an argument that there could be some wide range of outcomes, right, with Pittsburgh and Chicago. And it's got a pretty decent total.
Maybe the defense in that game is actually the way to do it, Tambo, that just take one of those defenses, and they're the highest turnover variance teams, both of them in the league so far this year, that maybe that's just the play.
Definitely a spot we could go to. Yeah. Or maybe this is the Lamar 67 too, by the way. That's pretty good. And if we like that little tidbit from Zay Flowers earlier, if Zay has that game that we're looking for, that's going to be very advantageous for Lamar as well. So I think that's definitely a good idea. And maybe this is the one where we end up on a Steelers Bears, or maybe even Jared's Chiefs D that we end up on at the end of it if we have that money as well. So I like this starting point.
So Lamar, Flowers, and Mark Andrews makes the most sense, John?
Yeah, I think so. I actually like Zay Flowers this week. I think he's still underrated. I know we're kind of been waiting for it since week 1, but like he hasn't had Lamar Jackson as his quarterback for a good portion of that stretch. And the Ravens have had some kind of wonky like weather games and stuff like that. But I think Zay Flowers is in a good position to like put up to kind of make a statement at the wide receiver position going forward.
I actually didn't take a look at all of the weather reports yet, Tambo. I assume it's just going to be cold. It doesn't seem. I feel like if there was going to be a ton of wind and rain like last week in some of those games, that we would have heard about it by now.
Yeah, I think it's Pittsburgh and Chicago is the only spot even being mentioned. It's like fine, 10 miles an hour, so we're good.
Yeah, Baltimore actually looks like kind of nice on Sunday.
Baltimore, big team total at home as well. I'd like to get a Detroit piece in here still if we can, but
Gibbs, easy.
Yeah, good
done.
Game.
I mean, we could throw in Jameson Williams too. I mean, it's much, much cheaper.
Could end up being the Montgomery spot too. He's cheap as well.
It could, but also if we use Gibbs, it seems like we're pretty tied to Hodgins, and that does save us all the money.
Yeah, what does that get us? Let's look at that version. I'm a big, Pat, we've only had one other week where we went crazy on a cheap New York Giant, and it was the Darius break the Slayton week last season. So maybe it's a Hodgins week this week where we get it right.
That would be fantastic news. John, it was once Hodgins week in the first round of the playoffs, and it's like the best week on NFL DraftKings I've ever had. 100% Hodgins worked out.
Yeah, and he's got a history, right? Like we'll see. Jackson Dart could be back, so that maybe would dart go to him as much as like Jameis Winston did, but it seems to be an organizational thing behind Hodgins. I'll throw out a Jahmyr Gibbs stat. At least the odds I'm looking at, Jahmyr Gibbs minus 280 to score a anytime touchdown. That's better than Jonathan Taylor.
That's crazy. It doesn't feel like it should be that high.
Yeah. Of course, he's one-way odds, aren't the best comparisons, but I mean, he's got the best anytime touchdown odds on the site that I'm looking at.
Yeah, we could mix in Eagles and Cowboys, but I mean, that's sort of my take on that game, Tambo, is I like the Cowboys and I like the under. But it's just not a game I want to target.
Yeah, that makes it a little bit more tricky. I was trying to see the Gibbs. So this is interesting. The Gibbs 100-yard plus anytime touchdown is plus 325, but he's like almost $2,000 cheaper than Jonathan Taylor. And the odds were, what was it, like plus 290 or plus? So it was, I forget what it was before. But anyway, my point is it's not that far off, and that's the whole point of this slate, like we talked about, where you get that for almost $2,000 cheaper. So I like that quite a bit.
So we have a running back, wide receiver, flex, and DST to go with here. You can go Chase Brown, Emmanuel Wilson, defense, and have like $6,000 left over if you wanted to. Does anyone worry about Lamar that he's very clearly still hurt and doesn't run anymore? Or is that better for stacking him?
He still passes.
Yeah, not well.
It's been rough. We're waiting for the big game. This could be the spot, though. These, big favorites at home. I think they do put up these points. The Ravens spot does look good to me. So could it be Derrick Henry? Yes, but I wouldn't mind just putting Lamar in here like you have him, and then go like Gibbs with, I don't know if you want to put Chase Brown in or who else, but there's definitely opportunity. I also still, I don't know. We've had this conversation enough, but I also think like McBride, just, you're not getting much for 6,800 outside of him just in a smash spot. So
who was $4,100 at receiver? It was Yoshivas, wasn't it? Fit him in here. I guess we don't need to. We can put in a defense instead of just assuming that we're going to use the most expensive one. Is there any defense that, like, we didn't use any Bears or Steelers? Let's throw Steelers in here for this one. Then we got $5,800. Oh, we can play an injured Marvin Harrison. That works out.
There's your boy Jameson Williams.
Yeah, but we already have. Could you play Gibbs and Williams, John, as like two offs in this lineup without anything else in that game?
Well, we have Hodgins from the game, so we've got a little mini game stack right there. I would also, we could go to Alec Pierce at 5K if we're trying to grab a piece of that Kansas City, Indianapolis game. But I don't mind the Hodgins, Jameson Williams, Gibbs mini stack either, because we're kind of stacking up that game. Like, what if it's just Zay Flowers, with 2 touchdowns, Mark Andrews with 1, and then it's the Giants and Detroit game that goes off, particularly Detroit. So
there is something else like kind of wild we can do here. So hear me out. I know that we never want to believe Cust on this show, but he did tell me that AD Mitchell is going to go off this week, Tambo.
Okay.
And he is the bring back for at $3,200 for the Raven stack.
Let me see this here.
And he was open on every play in that Thursday night game. He just can't catch.
I think.
I mean, they traded for him for a reason. I think he's a former highly drafted player.
He was a second-round pick for the Colts. He just can't catch.
Yeah, but I mean, the Jets are going to have to throw to somebody, right? Tyrod, they're probably going to throw more than we're expecting with Taylor in the lineup.
There it is.
It's a pretty unique lineup.
Bijan Chiefs ends up being...
Man, there it is. That's a unique way to play it, and it gets you to the Chiefs call that we wanted to get to. It's got the 3-1 for that game. You've got the secondary with Gibbs. You're not playing the cheap Saints D or the cheaper Saints D. You go Bijan against it, and then you've got AD Mitchell just to make it finish out. So, yeah, I like that.
This lineup, John, screams Millie Maker only.
Yeah, sure, but I don't know. AD Mitchell, right? Like, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, unless you watch the games. Have we hit our allotment of lineups? I think that we have. That ain't no way to live. Let's see if I can get another lineup in here. Let's go. All right, haven't maxed it out yet. We're still good. We have one more lineup to play with. Is there one more game that anyone would like to talk about? Or are we good?
What else do you got, John? I'll leave it to you.
So it would go to a game that I'm not necessarily as high on as like the field could be, but I would want to go to Philadelphia and Dallas.
How do you build that out?
Yeah, I think from the Eagles side, right? Like I think it's hurts Devontae Smith.
I think that makes the most sense to me, Tambo, because the improvement in the Dallas defense, which could be absolutely not true. They could have just played the Raiders and everyone looks good against the Raiders. However, it does feel like their front seven has gotten much better. That like Barkley under yardage would be a spot that I would want to take this week. And then if someone's going to get deep, it probably is Devonta Smith. You might be able to throw Goddard into this lineup too and figure out what to do on the Dallas side.
I guess what's absolutely crazy now that I plug it in a little bit and just think about this is Dallas has been horrible. I know, like, yes, they made some pickups at the trade deadline, et cetera, but either way, in week 12, you'd be getting Jalen Hurts for $6,600, AJ Brown for $5,900, and Devonta Smith for $5,600. That's not what you think would be the case right now. Lamb under 8K. I mean, Pickens is 6,900, has been like a wide receiver one. But just noting it, yeah, like you can do kind of whatever you want. That's very close, Pat. 4,800 remaining in the three spots. 5K now with Pickens. Yeah, so again, you know what you'll land on kind of. But man, is that an interesting setup when you think about what this slate could turn into or what it might look like.
Yeah, I think I would rather play something from that Bears and Steelers game, John, than go to this game, even though it is a lot cheaper than normal. I just don't see, and listen, if I don't see points in the game, it's probably going to be the highest scoring total of the week. So maybe we should finish building this out. But there's something about this game that reeks of, and someone in the chat just pointed it out too. It's exactly the same way that I see it, that the Eagles are just the Chiefs from last year. Like they want to play like 13-10 games.
Yeah, honestly, I think this is bad DFSing, right? Like, so, well, we got one more lineup. Nobody likes this, but let's do it. I agree. Like, if you're feeling stronger about the Chicago-Pittsburgh, let's go there instead. Start off with some Caleb Williams.
Yeah, we'll have to start off with Caleb because we still don't know who is starting at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, Tambo. It's probably going to be Rodgers if I had to guess, but it could be Mason Rudolph. Does that matter to you if we're not going to use either one anyway?
It kind of does because you want someone to push it, and again, it's not like Rodgers has been revolutionary, but nor has Metcalf been any good or anything like that. But at the end of the day, you kind of do want something where you can see it push back and forth. But I think, yeah, I'd be more likely to go to the Caleb side here.
So let's go Caleb, Adunze, Burden, John. Would those be the Bears you'd want to go to?
Yeah, I think so. I think Luther Burden, guy, probably getting more involved as the season goes on. So I think that's a good way to start.
So I like Burden over longest reception too. I think that's going to be my cool bet player prop parlay this week and some of my underdog picks. What is the Steeler to run it back with? Because I don't know if it is DK Metcalf at this point. And Warren looks like he's probably going to go. If it's not Warren, do you just play Gainwell everywhere?
I think if Warren's out, then I think Gainwell looks very appealing. I don't know that you need a Pittsburgh run back. Like if you're double stacking this game with like Jalen Warren would probably be the place I would want to go. But like there's probably better running backs out there for the price. So it might be one of those situations where we're just okay with the Caleb Williams double stack. We don't necessarily need a Pittsburgh run back.
I kind of agree with that, Tam, but what do you think?
Yeah, you can do it without the run back, no problem. I guess it just depends on, man, and Metcalf's another guy. Like when is this guy going to have a good game?
He isn't. He's terrible. He's $5,300 now.
That's what I'm saying. And it's like, 19, 16, there's some others in there, but yeah, it kind of depends on that too. I prefer Rodgers at least, I think, but yeah, I'm with John. I think you can just run it without.
I mean, we can just say, well, it's a lot. Our wide receivers will use DK. He's still getting the opportunity. He's just not coming through on any of these. And hell, maybe Mason Rudolph would be better for DK Metcalf since Rodgers just likes to throw him like 2-yard like drags over the middle. Maybe they'll actually look down the field.
That could be the case too. Yeah, maybe that is better. Like you said, I don't know. I product of the what ifs here, but I would try them just to use them because it's the good part is, Pat, what we've been looking at is when you plug in those three, what does it look like? And almost 6K left as opposed to that 5K range for how you can build. So you can pick and choose some other spots to be able to get action.
Let's see how we can build this out. Hodgins. We can get to Gibbs, Henry, McBride, and Hodgins, John, to fill out that lineup if we wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, those are some names we've been bringing up over and over again, but for a reason. We're high on all of those players, and that leaves us a healthy amount for defense. And
that gives us Chiefs D again, if that's the route we wanted to go to. I mean, the game that we haven't talked about, I don't know. I mean, you said Cedric Tillman, maybe Harold Fannin if Njoku is out, but what about the Raiders D? Should we find a way to work in Raiders D against Shadur?
Should we find a way to work in the Cleveland D against Geno?
Yeah,
I took like a billion sacks last week. They're $2,900. I think maybe other people are finding that already, but I was just going to say that's pretty interesting to me is the Cleveland side more than the other. Although it does look like people are going to the Raiders for 3,500, but
so
that's the product
right,
of Shedeur.
I have the Raiders and Browns right now, John, at similar ownership, right around 8%, with the Saints and Seahawks being 1 and 2 on the slate.
Yeah, I'd go actually to the Browns defense, like Tambo said. I don't know if this is the Shedeur Sanders game. I think it might be the Quinshon Judkins game that's maybe taking opportunities away from the Raiders defense. Whereas the Raiders are going to have Geno Smith throwing it to the Browns. So I'd go with Cleveland defense.
Yeah, if Myles Garrett's doing that to the Ravens and to Lamar Jackson, he should have another field day here as he continues just to rack them up. So we'll see.
I went over this on the DraftKings show, on the spread show last week, but I bet the Browns last week as they're currently undefeated against the spread at home. They have yet to cover on the road so far this season. And you can even see it in like their direct fantasy points. Like there was the one game, the Minnesota game, that wasn't in Cleveland, that was in London. But they had the bad week 1, although it's a game they should have won, scoring 4 DraftKings points. But their other 3 games in Cleveland, week 3, 13 DraftKings points, 25 against the Dolphins, and 17 against the Ravens last week. They have yet to break double digits on the road, if anyone cares about that.
Yeah. Not really a game I'm looking to stack, but we can use either of the defenses.
All right, let's use that defense and call it a day. Thanks, guys, for being on. John, what time is your show later on today?
Yeah, we've got the 12:30 444 DFS MVP podcast. I think Davis is still out this week, so I think it'll be myself, Neil Orfield, and Pat Crane. But yeah, it's worth tuning in for.
Mark Carr in the chat, Tambo, does say, can you just play the Browns D, then flex the Raiders D? Because that would be great.
Yeah, play them both. Put them together. That's your move if we could do it. The Jameis one, man, he didn't quite get us there, but he did not disappoint with the late INT just for the cherry on top, extra piece.
He tried to do it for us. The Packers would not reciprocate with actually catching those balls thrown to them.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly classic Jameis.
They dropped 5 picks in the game.
Yeah. We could have had a lot bigger day, Pat. But Jameis was okay. He could have done more for us too, but tried to mix some of those guys in.
It's funny, John, because I had the Stafford Puka JSN lineup, and I actually put that one into, I think it was like the $100, and it was in the money till everyone in the Arizona game just started going off. Like I had a whole bunch of lineups that were in the money until that. I'm glad it did because my Arizona lineups ended up going to the top as well. But that game just completely shifted the entire slate.
That's the game we play, right? Like there's a 1 o'clock window and a 4 o'clock window, and you don't want to feel too secure, even if you're looking good after that 1 o'clock window.
Well, it's funny. I was looking good with a later stack. I just had the wrong stack for that particular lineup, but it just everyone else I had, it was Bijan and like everyone that you would have needed. It was Bijan and Tet as like a run back. I was like, oh, here we go. This is going to be perfect. And then like Stafford didn't do anything after the first 2 drives, which is disappointing. 10 a.m. Eastern Tambo on the Chip It Nation YouTube channel for you and Blickle on Saturday.
Yeah, Leverage Lane show will be then, and then following up again 10 a.m. Eastern the next day. Sunday will be Hoop, Title, and myself for the main slate show. All our final thoughts will be on that one over at Ship It Nation.
I saw Hoop just dominated UFC like last week or the week before. Good on
him.
He
crushes UFC. Yeah, that's an underrated thing. Ship It Nation, the MMA team we've got with Title and Marley, those guys put a lot of time in. I know our guy Sheets, who does a lot of the back testing. The ownership is really strong. So if you play MMA, and we'll have more on this upcoming, even if it's like sort of just an add-on. I talk about this all the time with Ship It Nation and 4for4. Like add these to piece of your stack. You don't always, people think like you have to be one team or like one side or everything, and it's not how it works. It's a small industry. Like you can definitely have access to different sites, get different opinions, put them all together and make your own process. I think that's the key and the best way to do it by far.
All right, you can follow John at J Breslin on Twitter, Tambo at Toteg and Tambo, me at the PME. We're off next week for Thanksgiving, but I'll have a ton of content out before that. I might even do the, I'll call Raza. We'll do the Thanksgiving slate like we do every single year. That'll be a ton of fun. I'll want to play some stupid player in the first game because it worked out for me one year with Theo Riddick like 8 years ago, and I continue to go back to that same strategy every year, and it hasn't worked since, but doesn't mean it can't work this year. So tune into that, and then maybe a special show in 2 weeks at this particular time without me, maybe John and Tambo. We'll see. We'll see what we can work out. All right? Thank you all for being here. Smash the like on the way out, and I'll see you next time.